The indictment details specific examples where the defendants profited from illegal gambling and illegal betting on various NBA games.
The FBI's probe into illegal sports betting has now reached the NBA's sidelines. Yeah, sure, we've heard whispers, but now it's out in the open.
Good morning. Today we are here in New York to announce a historic arrest across a wide-sweeping criminal enterprise that envelops both the NBA and La Casa Nostra. The men and women up here standing with me represent a small portion of the leadership team that brought profound justice in an era that needed it more than any. I'll just highlight some of the details in the case and the FBI work, and then you'll hear from the others. But as you now know, individuals such as Chauncey Billups, Damon Jones, and Terry Rozier were taken into custody today. Former, current NBA players and coaches. What you don't know is that this is an illegal gambling operation and sports rigging operation that spanned the course of years. The FBI led a coordinated takedown across 11 states to arrest over 30 individuals today responsible for this case, which is very much ongoing.
And word is that moments after FBI agents confronted both coaches about rigged game bets, tensions erupted. Classic Caitlyn, always looking for drama, but honestly this is wild. And this newly surfaced video of the Chauncey Billups clash with the FBI may finally reveal who knew what and when. We have all the gist. Let's break it down. The scandal breaks, and it's a big one. The basketball world woke up on October 23, 2025 to absolute chaos. What started as just another regular season game day for the NBA quickly transformed into one of the most explosive, far-reaching, and downright shocking scandals in professional sports history. We're talking about arrests, FBI raids across 11 states, mafia involvement, rigged poker games, insider betting conspiracies, and NBA coaches and players being taken into federal custody. This isn't some far-fetched Hollywood screenplay. This is real life, and it's unfolding right before our eyes with implications that could fundamentally reshape how we view professional basketball forever. Federal authorities announced arrests in two interconnected gambling schemes that have absolutely rocked the National Basketball Association to its core. The investigations, which have been given the dramatic names Operation Royal Flush and Operation Nothing But Bet, highlight what prosecutors are calling sophisticated criminal operations that used cutting-edge technology and insider knowledge to exploit the rapidly growing intersection of professional sports and legalized gambling in America. Let's start with the biggest names that sent shockwaves reverberating throughout the entire sports community. Portland Trail Blazers head coach Chauncey Billups, a beloved 2024 Basketball Hall of Fame inductee and the 2004 NBA Finals MVP, was arrested and charged for allegedly serving as what prosecutors call a face card in elaborate rigged poker operations. Think about that for a moment. A Hall of Famer, a champion, someone who millions of basketball fans have looked up to for decades now, facing serious federal charges that could land him behind bars for years. But Billups wasn't alone in facing the harsh spotlight of federal law enforcement. Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier was also arrested, accused of something that sounds almost too brazen to believe, allegedly tipping off associates about faking an injury during a game so they could place profitable bets on his statistical under. We're talking about a professional athlete potentially manipulating his own performance, deliberately underperforming or exiting games early, all so that gambling associates could cash in on insider information. The audacity, the betrayal of the game, the complete disregard for the integrity of professional basketball. It's staggering, and there's more. Former NBA player Damon Jones was charged in both schemes, allegedly involved in both the rigged poker operation and the insider betting conspiracy, accused of leaking confidential information about Lakers superstars like LeBron James and Anthony Davis. When you have someone connected to multiple aspects of these criminal enterprises, it shows just how deep and interconnected these schemes truly were. Good morning. Or maybe not so good, huh?
The indictment details specific examples where the defendants profited from illegal gambling and illegal betting on various NBA games, about the performance of players on, among other things, the Charlotte Hornets, the Portland Trail Blazers, the Los Angeles Lakers, and the Toronto Rangers.
Let that sink in for a moment. Over 30 individuals arrested across 11 states. This wasn't some small-time operation or a few rogue individuals making bad decisions. This was an extensive, methodical, carefully orchestrated criminal enterprise that spanned multiple years, involved dozens of co-conspirators, and potentially defrauded victims and sportsbooks out of tens of millions of dollars. The sheer scale of what we're dealing with here is almost incomprehensible. The rigged poker operation, which authorities have dubbed Operation Royal Flush, allegedly involved high-stakes underground poker games that were backed and controlled by organized crime families, specifically members of the Bonanno Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese crime families. Yes, you heard that correctly. 4 of New York's infamous 5 families apparently came together in a rare collaboration to execute these schemes. This level of cooperation among organized crime families is extraordinarily rare and hasn't been seen at this scale in decades, marking a significant moment in the ongoing battle against La Cosa Nostra. The poker games themselves sound like something straight out of a crime thriller novel. They used advanced cheating technology that would make even the most creative Hollywood screenwriters jealous. Altered shuffling machines that wirelessly transmitted card sequences to off-site operators who then relayed information back to conspirators at the table. X-ray tables that allowed players to see face-down cards in real time. Marked decks that were only visible through special glasses or contact lenses worn by insiders. Hidden cameras feeding data to algorithms that predicted hands. I mean, come on. These games took place in luxury locations: Manhattan apartments, Hamptons estates, Las Vegas casinos, Miami venues, places designed to attract wealthy fish, the unsuspecting high rollers who were about to be fleeced for everything they had. Victims lost at least $715 million, with some individual victims reportedly losing as much as $1.8 million in single sessions. And when victims couldn't pay their debts, the mafia enforcers allegedly used threats, violence, extortion, and robbery to collect what they were owed. This wasn't just about gambling. This was about organized crime using sophisticated technology and celebrity lures to systematically defraud people and then using traditional mob enforcement tactics to ensure payment. The parallel investigation, Operation Nothing But Bet, focused on something equally sinister but in a different arena, using insider NBA information to manipulate sports betting market. Between December 2022 and March 2024, conspirators allegedly leaked confidential details about player injuries, illnesses, game plans, and even intentional underperformances to enable profitable prop bets. Wagers on individual player statistics like points scored, rebounds grabbed, or assists made. The scheme affected multiple NBA teams: the Charlotte Hornets, Portland Trail Blazers, Los Angeles Lakers, Toronto Raptors, and Orlando Magic. Think about the implications here. Games that millions of fans watched, cheered for, bet on, and emotionally invested in may have been compromised by insiders who were using non-public information to make money. The trust that fans place in the integrity of the game, the belief that what they're watching is genuine competition, all of that has been called into serious question. The most detailed allegation in the betting conspiracy involves Terry Rozier in a game that took place on March 23, 2023, when Rozier was still playing for the Charlotte Hornets. According to prosecutors, Rozier allegedly tipped off his childhood friend Denner Laster and other associates that he planned to exit the game early with a fake foot injury. Armed with this insider information, the group placed more than $209,000 in bets on Rozier's statistical unders, betting that he would score fewer than 15.5 points, grab fewer rebounds, dish out fewer assists than the betting line suggested. And what happened? Rozier played just 9 minutes, recording only 5 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists, all well under his season averages, and the betting line. The bets paid out handsomely, generating tens of thousands of dollars in profit that were allegedly delivered directly to Rozier's home, where the group counted their cash. Sportsbooks had flagged unusual betting patterns that very morning, with one bettor placing 30 separate wagers in just 46 minutes, all of which won. Despite these red flags, the NBA's response at the time was to quietly bench Rozier for the rest of the season, officially citing the foot injury, but potentially trying to contain a scandal they hoped wouldn't explode into the public consciousness. But now, nearly 2 years later, that scandal has exploded with nuclear force, and the fallout is only beginning. The viral moment and resurfaced evidence. Now here's where things get even more fascinating from a public relations and internet culture perspective. During the massive press conference announcing these arrests and indictments, something absolutely hilarious and meme-worthy happened that instantly went viral, and in some ways overshadowed the gravity of the actual criminal charges being discussed.
Terry Rozier and Chauncey Billups were both arrested today in what's been one of the most bizarre news stories in NBA history. Since part of this with Rozier, of course, stems from him allegedly faking an injury, I thought it'd be fun to go back and take a look at that game to see if we could find what exactly happened. So, watching this back, absolutely nothing that I can point to and say, yep, this looks like a time when the foot might have been injured, and not even really any indication just from objectively watching him that he was having issues with his foot.
Did you catch that? Toronto Rangers? Not the Toronto Raptors, the actual NBA team? Not the New York Rangers, the NHL team. The Toronto Rangers. A team that doesn't exist in any professional sports league whatsoever. U.S. Attorney Joseph Nocella Jr. made this absolutely priceless gaffe during what was supposed to be a deadly serious press conference about organized crime, federal conspiracy charges, and the potential corruption of America's favorite basketball league. And oh boy, did the internet run with this one. Within minutes, memes began flooding social media platforms with fans joking about getting Toronto Rangers season tickets, speculating about how many championships this fictional team had won, and creating elaborate backstories about the greatest players in Rangers history. Some creative souls even started designing mock jerseys and logos for this non-existent franchise. The humor provided a brief moment of levity in what was otherwise an incredibly serious and sobering news story about potential criminal conspiracy at the highest levels of professional basketball. But while that gaffe was making the rounds as comedy gold, something far more sinister was also going viral. Actual footage and evidence that appeared to support the prosecution's claims about game manipulation and insider betting. And let me tell you, once you see this stuff, it's impossible to unsee. And it raises some deeply troubling questions about just how extensive this alleged corruption might have been. Remember that March 23, 2023 Hornets game we talked about? Well, a doctor who specializes in sports medicine decided to go back and review the footage frame by frame to see if there was any evidence of Rozier actually sustaining the foot injury he claimed forced him out of the game early.
So Chauncey Billups just walked out of the courthouse. I asked him point blank whether he defrauded victims out of millions of dollars. He said nothing at all. He kept his composure.
Let's break down what this medical professional found because it's absolutely damning. Rozier played until just under 3 minutes remained in the first quarter. The doctor reviewed every single second of Rozier's time on the court during that period. He watched Rozier making drives to the basket. No limping, no hobbling, no grabbing at his foot, nothing that would indicate any kind of discomfort or injury. He watched him run up and down the court multiple times. Still no signs of distress. He watched him make crossover moves, plant his feet, make passes. Absolutely zero indication that anything was wrong with his right foot, which was supposedly where the injury occurred. Then even more tellingly, after Rozier came out of the game with 2:12 left in the first quarter, he sat on the bench for approximately 2.5 minutes of game time. Probably 5 minutes of real time when you account for timeouts and stoppages. During this entire period, he didn't seek medical attention. He didn't have athletic trainers examining his foot. He didn't ice it or elevate it. He just sat there, seemingly comfortable and carefree, not making any motion whatsoever toward his supposedly injured foot. As the doctor points out in his analysis, this behavior is completely inconsistent with someone experiencing legitimate foot discomfort that would prevent them from continuing to play. Only in the final literal seconds of the first quarter, with the quarter about to end, we see Rozier finally take off his right shoe and start rubbing his ankle or foot. And then of course he didn't return for the second quarter and in fact didn't play another game for the rest of that season. The Hornets officially listed him as doubtful with foot discomfort in the second quarter, but given everything we now know, that official injury designation takes on an entirely different and far more suspicious character. The doctor's conclusion in his video is particularly powerful because it speaks to a broader issue that this scandal exposes: the difficulty of proving whether an athlete is faking pain or injury. As he explains, there are many legitimate medical conditions where a player can experience genuine pain without any objective findings on MRI scans or X-rays. Conditions like patellofemoral pain syndrome or ankle impingement. Medical staff has no choice but to take the athlete at their word when they report pain that they cannot physically continue playing through. This creates a massive vulnerability in the system, a loophole that could be easily exploited by players who are part of betting conspiracy. But Rozier's March 23 game isn't the only footage that's been making the rounds. Clips from other games have also resurfaced and gone viral, particularly a game from March 5, likely 2024 or 2025, where Rozier was playing for the Miami Heat against the Cleveland Cavaliers. In that contest, Rozier shot an abysmal 3 for 14 from the field, including 1 for 8 from three-point range with 4 turnovers in 40 minutes of play. The low-light reel from that game has been compiled and shared millions of times across social media platforms, and frankly, some of the plays look almost comically bad for a professional basketball player. We're talking about botched passes where the ball literally bounces off his finger, throwing the ball directly to an opposing player, seemingly on purpose, lackadaisical spins that result in easy turnovers, shooting uncontested shots that barely graze the rim, and falling down while losing possession of the ball. NBA fans on Reddit have labeled some of these plays as worthy of the Hall of Fame for their egregiousness, with many speculating in hindsight whether these were deliberate acts of sabotage designed to ensure that prop bets on his unders would hit. Now, to be completely fair and balanced here, there are legitimate counter-arguments to this speculation. Rozier has long been known as a streaky player prone to inconsistent performances, someone who could have brilliant offensive nights followed by absolutely terrible shooting performances. His career field goal percentage of around 42% reflects this inconsistency. Additionally, his 2024-2025 season with the Heat has been described as horrifically bad overall, one of the worst stretches of his entire career, which could explain poor performances without needing to invoke a conspiracy theory. And here's another wrinkle that makes this whole situation even more bizarre. There's a podcast clip from 2023 that has also gone massively viral in the wake of these arrests. It's from episode 277 of the Only Friends podcast, which aired on August 21, 2023, more than 2 years before Billups's arrest. In this episode, professional poker player Matt Berkey, who has over $4.7 million in live tournament earnings, discusses his suspicions about rigged private poker games involving Chauncey Billups. Berkey goes on to describe how friends of his attended these games in both Los Angeles and Las Vegas and confirmed afterward that they were absolutely cheated. He talked about players who clearly didn't even understand the rules of no-limit hold'em somehow making incredibly unlikely plays, jamming hundreds of big blinds with weak hands like gut-shot straight draws and then miraculously hitting their card. He describes how only the professional poker players were losing while the amateurs were winning consistently, which is the exact opposite of what should happen in legitimate poker games. There's even a new report that NBA legend Kevin Garnett participated in some of these 2019 poker games that Berkey described. Though Garnett faces no accusations or charges and there's no suggestion he was aware of any cheating. But it shows just how deeply these schemes may have penetrated into NBA circles, with multiple high-profile figures potentially exposed to or involved in these operations. The fallout, so where does all of this leave us? What are the broader implications of what we're witnessing unfold before our very eyes? And perhaps most importantly, what does this mean for the future of professional basketball, sports betting, and the relationship between organized crime and athletics in America? These questions don't have easy answers, but they're absolutely critical to explore as this scandal continues to develop and potentially expand even further. First and foremost, let's talk about the potential consequences for the individuals who have been arrested and charged. Each defendant in the NBA basketball gambling case has been charged with conspiracy to commit wire fraud and conspiracy to commit money laundering. These are extremely serious federal charges that carry a maximum penalty of up to 20 years in prison for each count. When you're potentially looking at 40 years behind bars if convicted on all counts, you can understand why FBI Director Kash Patel described this as a historic arrest and emphasized that violating the law is a losing proposition. Terry Rozier appeared in federal court in Orlando, Florida, where he was released after posting his $6 million Miami home as collateral with strict conditions, including a prohibition on any form of gambling. His attorney has called the case a revived non-case and criticized the arrest as a photo op, maintaining that Terry is not a gambler and vowing to fight the charges vigorously. But regardless of the legal defense strategy, Rozier's NBA career is effectively on hold. His reputation is in tatters and he faces the very real possibility of never playing professional basketball again, even if he somehow avoids prison time.
This alleged illegal gambling operation hustled unwitting victims out of tens of millions of dollars and created a financial pipeline for La Cosa Nostra to help fund and facilitate their organized criminal activity.
Chauncey Billups appeared in federal court in Portland, Oregon, where he was released on bond with conditions including no gambling and surrender of his passport. His attorney has emphasized his integrity and intent to fight these charges, but think about what this means for Billups personally. He's a Hall of Famer, an NBA champion, a beloved figure in basketball history, and now all of that legacy is overshadowed by these criminal allegations. The Portland Trail Blazers immediately placed him on leave and named Tiago Splitter as interim head coach, effectively ending his coaching career at least temporarily and possibly permanently, depending on how the legal proceedings unfold. Beyond the individual defendants, there are massive institutional implications for the NBA as an organization. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver has long been a proponent of legalized sports betting, arguing that regulation and transparency would help protect the integrity of the game far better than prohibition ever could. The league has entered into lucrative partnerships with sports betting companies like DraftKings and FanDuel, generating billions of dollars in revenue and fundamentally changing how millions of fans engage with basketball. Both FanDuel and DraftKings issued statements emphasizing that regulated betting platforms were instrumental in detecting the fraudulent activity in this case, noting that their monitoring systems flagged unusual betting patterns that ultimately contributed to the investigation. But this scandal raises fundamental questions about whether the NBA has been sufficiently vigilant in protecting against the corrupting influence of gambling. There are reports that the league knew about irregularities surrounding the March 23, 2023 Rozier game, but may have tried to handle the situation quietly rather than immediately involving federal authorities and making it public. The fact that sportsbooks alerted the NBA immediately when they detected suspicious betting patterns, but it took nearly 2 years for criminal charges to be filed, suggests that there may have been attempts to sweep things under the rug or handle matters internally rather than exposing the full extent of potential corruption. This alleged illegal gambling operation hustled unwitting.
What we're announcing today is not just another takedown. It's the result of more than 2 years of coordinated investigative work by the NYPD's Joint Organized Crime Task Force and the FBI. 2 cases that exposed criminal networks led by 34 individuals who believed the rules did not apply to them. They hid behind layers of complexity, behind money, and behind influence, believing those things would shield them from accountability.
Facilitate their organized criminal activity. FBI officials have repeatedly emphasized that these investigations are ongoing and have warned that what we're seeing now is just the tip of the iceberg. That phrase should send chills down the spines of NBA executives, team owners, players, and coaches throughout the league. If more than 30 people have already been arrested and we're being told this is only the beginning, how many more individuals might be implicated as the investigation continues? How many games over the past several years might have been compromised by insider betting or intentional underperformance? How can fans trust that what they're watching on the court is genuine competition rather than orchestrated manipulation? This scandal also connects directly to the 2024 case of former Toronto Raptors player Jontay Porter, who pleaded guilty to wire fraud for similar manipulations and received a lifetime ban from the NBA. Porter's scheme involved many of the same elements, tipping off associates about planned early exits from games, betting on his own statistical unders, using straw bettors to place wagers, and then intentionally underperforming to ensure those bets paid out. Porter is referenced but not charged in this current case, as he's also already been banned and is cooperating with investigators. But his involvement shows that this wasn't an isolated incident or a one-off situation. This appears to be a pattern of behavior that multiple NBA players engaged in over an extended period. The mafia connection in the poker scheme adds yet another disturbing dimension to this scandal. The involvement of 4 of New York's 5 major crime families, Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese, in a coordinated operation is extraordinarily rare and represents a level of organized crime cooperation that law enforcement hasn't seen at this scale in decades. These families typically operate independently or in smaller partnerships due to territorial disputes and inherent distrust, but apparently the profit potential from these rigged poker games was significant enough to overcome those traditional rivalries. The technology used in the poker scheme is genuinely frightening in its sophistication. We're not talking about simple card marking or sleight of hand tricks that you might see in a classic con artist movie. We're talking about custom-built X-ray table, wirelessly connected shuffling machines that could predict and control the order of cards, special contact lenses and glasses that could read invisible markings, hidden cameras built into light fixtures and table surfaces, and off-site operators receiving and relaying information to designated quarterbacks at the table who would then signal other conspirators. The level of planning, investment, and technical expertise required to pull this off shows just how lucrative and how serious these criminal enterprises have become. And let's not forget about the victim. At least $7 of $15 million was stolen from individuals who thought they were participating in legitimate high-stakes poker games. These weren't casinos or corporations with insurance policies and security departments. These were individuals, some of them likely wealthy, yes, but still human beings who were deliberately and systematically defrauded by organized criminals using technology and celebrity lures to create an appearance of legitimacy. One victim alone reportedly lost $1.8 million. When those victims couldn't pay their gambling debts, they faced threats, extortion, and in some cases actual violence from mafia enforcers determined to collect what they felt they were owed. So what does the future hold? What reforms or changes might result from this scandal? Several possibilities seem likely. First, we can expect the NBA to implement far more stringent monitoring systems for player prop bets, potentially working even more closely with betting platforms to identify and immediately investigate any suspicious pattern. There will almost certainly be enhanced education programs for players and staff about the dangers of gambling associations and the severe consequences of any involvement in betting schemes. Second, there may be renewed calls for restricting or even eliminating player prop bets altogether, given how vulnerable they are to manipulation by insiders. Some commentators have argued that individual player performance props create too much temptation and too many opportunities for corruption, and that perhaps the sports betting industry should focus solely on team outcomes and game results that are far more difficult for any single individual to manipulate. Third, we might see enhanced background checks, financial monitoring, and restrictions on player and coach associations, particularly regarding high-stakes gambling environment. If NBA figures can't be trusted to participate in private poker games without becoming entangled in organized crime operations, then perhaps teams in the league need to implement policies that prohibit or severely restrict such activities. Fourth, there will almost certainly be congressional hearings and potential federal legislation addressing sports betting integrity, possibly creating new criminal penalties specifically targeting athletes and coaches who engage in betting-related corruption. The 2018 Supreme Court decision that opened the door to widespread legalized sports betting has created enormous economic opportunities, but has also created new vulnerabilities that may require legislative action to address. But perhaps the most important question is, can fans ever fully trust the integrity of the games they're watching? Again, when you see a player have an unusually poor performance, will you now wonder if there's a betting conspiracy behind it? When a key player sits out with a mysterious injury, will you question whether it's legitimate or strategic? When a game's outcome seems surprising or improbable, will you suspect manipulation rather than just athletic competition? That's the big question, isn't it? This whole thing kinda taints everything. Click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this, and let me know in the comments what you think. Is this the end of the NBA as we know it, or can it recover?